So look, today I'm speaking with James Smith, the founder and CEO of Smith Brothers Media, a marketing and creative agency based in Melbourne and Brisbane. I first met James around 7 years ago and have since then seen his business grow significantly. Although their agency focuses on helping small and medium businesses grow and improve, 3 years ago, he acquired one of the largest movie production houses in the world as a client. So his team are constantly designing billboards and all the creative artwork that you see that are household names. And even more recently, he signed a country as a client. Well, at least their international tourism campaign. So if anyone knows a thing or two about building a customer base and going large, it's James. James, how's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well. I can't complain. For those who don't know, it's Friday, so it's yes. A really good day.
Well, it's a special Friday too. It's Friday of Freedom Week.
It is. For those in New South Wales, anyway.
True that. So look, I'm based in Sydney, so for me, it's been a very big Freedom Week. Doing my bit, supporting local businesses, the local pub, the local coffee shop.
That means just going down the pub, doesn't it?
It's never been so easy to support small business or support local business than it has this week when just spending local counts.
I know.
Look, I guess one of the key messages I'm keen to hear from you today is like, look, you're based in Melbourne and Melbourne has gained the title as the lockdown capital of the world over the last 18 months. One
that we're not usually used to having. I think most livable city in the world is probably at the somewhere.
I think that's a distant memory or something that's long gone. But I mean, how have you gone running a business and running a successful business over the last 2 years? How's it been? It's
a really good question because I think for everyone, it's been difficult. It's been extremely challenging, and we've had our ups and downs, and we've learned a huge amount about ourselves. There've been moments where I think every business owner at some point has wanted to throw in the towel.
Yes.
Particularly those first few early months where we didn't really know what was going on, and obviously buyer sentiment was through the floor, and everyone was just holding back on, particularly when you're talking about investing in marketing or big projects.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear, I think, just fear of the unknown or fear of what's going to happen. It was the first time for all of us facing something like this.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think we're really blessed as a country that we did have a very good government response at the early stages, which helped combat a lot of that fear, which I think has allowed a lot of people to continue their forward momentum, particularly in that B2B space. Yeah. So we were fortunate in that sense. I mean, some of the big things for us as an organization, you mentioned earlier, that we do a lot of artwork and production for some household movie names. Now, a little bit of insight for anyone who doesn't know. So we work with the biggest movie names that you can think, but our work is about the artwork. It's all about the advertising artwork. So it's the billboards, it's the banners, it's all those sort of things, even the posters that you see in the cinema. The problem is that work revolves around movies being released. So for about 2 years, all those movies have been put on hold, which means all that artwork and all that work that we'd normally do is put on hold. So that's been particularly challenging. It's coming back now, but that's been one of the hardest things. And I think as a business, knowing, well, do you cut costs? Do you try to mothball? Particularly when you've got such great talent, and that's what's made us so successful over the years, is the incredible people that we've got in our organization. So my goal at the beginning was to make sure we do everything possible to retain our talent, our people. And I think fortunately for us, through those early months and that first year where it's particularly challenging, we were very lucky to be able to hold on to all the talent that we had. And we've come out of it the other end. What's been
so really... how did you do that? Was that an investment where you had to just cover their costs even though they couldn't be productive, or did you find other work that they could do? Like, how did you survive?
There was a little bit of both involved. Right. So one, it was kind of, we're going to reinvest any profits we previously made. We were willing to go to a certain point below the line to make sure we hold them. And I think everybody worked out the forecasting, and if they hadn't, they should have. So that was probably one of the key things for us, was to really understand where our business was going. And I have this thing I call days till death.
Yeah, right.
I make sure that I know exactly how many days till death there are so that you can survive. But just being on the finances and knowing exactly what was going gave me the comfort to be able to invest in retaining those people.
Yeah,
so that's one thing. But then on the flip side, we were able to, and I hate the word pivot because it's been used too many times.
Pivot, New World Order, just chuck them all in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we also have a really good animation team. We've got a full video production team as well. So the designers that we would normally have purely on design aspects were able to transition across some of their skills into that area. And animation blew up. Animation became
really.
Yeah. Right. So if you think about it, think of all those promo videos that you see all the time on TVC or Facebook videos. And of course, Facebook took off because everyone's at home on Facebook. The amount of users on social media.
Yeah. I mean, that was how you got the national daily update, basically. You sit on Facebook, see a feed and
pretty much. So, but all that live action recording was gone. You couldn't record. There was no production going on. So it all went to animation. So our animation team ramped up. And that was really fortunate that we were able to grow in certain areas to help combat some of the reduction in others too. We're very fortunate that a lot of the marketing that we do, the marketing side of the business, is what we call performance-based marketing. So it's not branding, it's not awareness, it's results driven. So for us, we didn't see we saw a downturn in some areas, particularly hospitality, tourism. In those other areas, there was an element of business as usual for some of them as well.
Incredible that you survived through all that. Now, I mean, look, a lot of the clients that we work with cover a big spectrum of small businesses across Australia. So whether it's tires and auto, gyms, professional services, like it's a big slather, but I mean, they're all owner operated businesses that we're working with out there. Look, from the runs on the board you've got with winning new work, what are a couple of tips you think you could give to our client base on how to win new work?
How to win new work? I think, first of all, understanding who your audience is really important. So knowing who your customers are, and you'll be surprised how many organizations, when we start working with them, they answer the question with everyone.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, it's much narrower than that. So understanding that's really important, particularly when you're looking to do any form of marketing, because we live in a day and age now where you don't just hope for the best and put an ad up on a billboard, or you put an ad out in the newspaper and hope the right people read that particular newspaper. Yeah. What it is now is you're actually able to target those people through so many different channels. Yeah. And quite often it's overlooked in the fact that you can target the right type of people. So really understanding who your audience is. You mentioned their tire and auto and those things. Yes, it's anyone, but it's anyone who needs their car repaired. It's anyone who needs a certain type of car. It's anyone who lives in a certain area. So the ability to target things based on location, based on demographics, based on interest, particularly search intent and interest, is fascinating. So I think my one piece of advice would be understand who your audience is, and in an ultimate way, understanding who your ideal customer is.
So I've heard people before talk about like creating a customer avatar or that sort of thing, which sounds a little bit out there until you bring it down and say, like, look, define who your favorite customer is that you currently service. So a little bit of kind of defining your ideal customer base can kind of come back to, I guess, defining who your favorite client is, almost. Not that any of us have favorites or anything, but define your favorite client and the one you enjoy servicing most. And a bit of introspection in order to, before you start your marketing campaign. Do you think that's a fair approach?
Oh, it's a massively fair approach. And I think there's different ways to actually tackle that question and try to find the answer. Because quite often if you're sitting down on a Friday evening like we are and you're having a glass of wine and you kind of say,
that's what I'm missing right now.
Who our ideal client is. We're gonna instantly go to the ones that we just like to get on with. We enjoy a conversation, but that doesn't make it your ideal client. And I think that's really important to understand the commercial aspect of who your ideal client is. Of course, you want to take into consideration the enjoyment factor, but first and foremost, you need to also look at the commercial aspect. And I think for us as a very commercially focused and commercially minded marketing organization, we like to do that. And that information really only comes from a couple of sources. And that's either ideally a CRM system, which integrates all your customer data, profitability into a CRM system, which not many do. And so short of that is the information that you have in your finance software. And I think that's one of the interesting factors we've spoken about previously. Understanding the value of your customers, and actually even just doing even as basic as revenue by contact. I mean, for those who use MyOb or Xero, whatever, you can run that report literally in about 30 seconds to work out the value of a client over a period of time to give you that information.
Yeah. No, definitely. Even understanding the lifetime value of a customer too. Like even if you only see them every 6 months or 12 months, understanding that one sale that you won, how much will you invest to win a customer like this if it brings you back whatever that repetitive sale value is an important number to know.
It's so true. And this is the interesting point you raise there, because if you ask someone how much does it cost you in marketing to get a new customer, they'll usually say X. And you say, well, what if it cost you 5 times X? That'd be too much. But what if that customer that cost you 5 times X was actually worth 10 times what it normally worth? And this is the challenge that we have as kind of, I suppose, commercially minded marketers, is to help clients understand the true number that you need to measure in marketing. And I usually say it as this, and that is understanding what your cost per acquisition of a client is. And then also understanding what the lifetime value of the client is, and the gap is what you're after. What is the dollar gap? The bigger the dollar gap, that's what you should go after. It doesn't matter if a client costs you $1,000 to gain or $10,000 to gain. If the gap ultimately is bigger between the lifetime value and the acquisition, it's worth it. People don't usually look at that, and that's where I think understanding, like you said, lifetime value is really important.
Well, look, and look, at the end of the day, from our perspective, it comes down to understanding your numbers. So there's a lot of business owners out there who are really good at what they do, their craft or their skill or what they're trained in. But I think what you're touching on there is that it's also important to understand your numbers to make an educated decision on how much to spend on the next campaign or how much to spend to win one customer.
Oh, completely. The other interesting fact about knowing your numbers and knowing whether to invest is, you mentioned lifetime client value. Well, if you win a new client, you don't get to enjoy the lifetime value until the lifetime happens.
True that.
So knowing your numbers, so you can almost, what I like to call, create your battle plan, if you like. You can then actually understand, well, I know I have to invest X, but it means that I'm going to be able to get that return over the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So you can actually build a financial forecast to actually work out what's worth investing now, knowing it will not return until 2 years later. But if I keep it up, I can 10x my business. I can do this. I can do that. And unless you have comfort in your numbers, you can't do that. It's impossible. You're going to constantly be thinking about your bank balance accounting for the next month or whatever it is, or I've got BAS due coming up. Unless you have that full picture, you're never going to be able to invest in the future growth of an organization.
No, definitely. Knowing what you can afford is a biggie. I mean, look, just not to have our conversation go too long today or anything, but like, look, if you were in the shoes of one of our clients, one of our small businesses, what are 3 key things you think they could do? You've touched on number 1, understand who their ideal customer is and what they do, what they look like. What are 2 other things you think a small business owner could be doing now to build their customer base, build their business?
So right now, depending on your industry, there is some really easy, surefire ways to make sure you're getting in front of people. Now, if you're in an industry that already provides a known product or service that is in demand, it's a necessity, someone needs it. So it could be anything from trades or services or financial services, those sort of things. People look for your type of business. So search marketing is you have to do it. If you're not doing it to any degree, then you're missing out. Your competition's there. So that's something you should be doing. The cost per acquisition from that type of marketing is relatively low, but the return is really high. So that's a no-brainer. One of the other areas as well, which is often overlooked, is, like I said, understanding your database, but actually communicating to your existing customers. Quite often when we talk about client value, we then want to look at the lifetime value. So how can you increase the lifetime value? So you know how I said cost per acquisition versus lifetime value? Well, in marketing, it's not just about us trying to lower the cost per acquisition. It's also about us trying to increase the lifetime value. So that's something you can do straight away without having to worry about winning new customers. How about winning new custom from your existing customers? So quite often that's a really clever way and a very low cost way to do it. So whether that's email marketing, SMS marketing, even event marketing to a degree as well.
Yeah,
so
right.
webinars, workshops, as we start to open up, making opportunity for your clients to be able to mingle and get to know one another whilst getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're in a B2B space, that's really important. So I think my key takeaway from this point, first point number 2, search marketing for those who've got a demand for their service that's required, whilst also increasing lifetime value by doing what we call nurture marketing of your existing contacts. That's number 2. The third point, it's a challenging one because there's so many good ones to go for. I think the third one would be from a marketing insight perspective. So how can you gain more insights from what you're doing already?
Okay.
You probably actually already have the answer. So most businesses are doing marketing of some sort. They're doing lots of different types of marketing. But if you were to ask them which marketing channel is giving them the best return, they wouldn't be able to answer that question because it's all in one big bucket.
Okay.
So the key thing there is to actually understand. And so whether that's a CRM system, whether it's using Google Analytics for digital marketing, it's really important to understand the value that your current marketing is working. Because do you know what? Out of the 7 channels you're working on, there might be one you can easily just scale up. So our idea with a client is to get them into a mindset of growth and find something that works that we can then scale up. So if you don't already know, make sure you've got insight around what currently works the best in your existing marketing channels. Awesome.
That's awesome. So look, thank you so much for the clear points and for taking the time out for a bit of a chat today about what to do. I mean, look, as we mentioned in the intro, I haven't seen anyone sign up as many big clients in the last couple of years as yourself, leading on from production houses to an entire nation in the tourism campaign. So who better to talk to about growing a business? So thank you very much for your time, James.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Simon. Enjoy it. Have a great rest of your Friday.
Thank you very much. Time to continue the celebrations of Freedom Week.
Support the local businesses, indeed.
Exactly right. See you later.
See you later. Take care.